7th and 8th grade, I made the worst decision of my life. I ran cross country. Now, I know what you may be thinking. This kid's weird because he ran for fun. But don't worry. I've repented. I joined football. I'm clean now. But I remember one race that was 2 miles long where there was no trees, just the sun beaming down on me. When I was running my heart out, I saw my coach at the last quarter of a mile before the last turn. And as I pass her, she says to me, "Only a quarter mile left. You can do this." I was just relieved. I'm hot, tired, and I'm just ready to be done. Then, once I make that turn, I look in front of me, and this huge mountain is in front of me. I saw that and just wanted to pass out. But I ran up that dreadful hill, and I crossed over the finish line and just immediately fell down. I was drained. I felt like I was about to die. This is terrible, but what would have been even more terrible is if I had quit right before that last part and just gave up, because all of that misery leading up to that point would have been worth nothing. King Asa's race was really good for 35 years of his life. He did what was good in the eyes of the Lord his God. And after God helped him battle the Ethiopians, God sent a prophet to Asa to remind him if he continues to seek the Lord will continue to seek him. And after Asa heard this, he took courage. In 2 Chronicles 15:9-15, it says, "Then he assembled all Judah and Benjamin and the people from Ephraim, Manasseh, and Simeon, who had settled among them, for large numbers had come over from Israel when they saw the Lord his God was with him. They assembled at Jerusalem in the 3rd month of the 15th year of Asa's reign, and at that time they sacrificed to the Lord 700 head of cattle and 7,000 sheep and goats from the plunder that they had brought back. They entered into a covenant to seek the Lord, the God of their ancestors, with all of their heart and soul. All who would not seek the Lord were put to death, whether small or great, man or woman. They took an oath to the Lord with loud acclamation, with shouting and with trumpets and horns. And all Judah rejoiced about the oath because they had sworn to it wholeheartedly. They sought God eagerly, and he was found by them. So the Lord gave them rest on every side." Asa was doing a lot of good at this time. He even removed his grandmother from the throne because she was queen and did evil at the time. And Asa's heart was fully committed to the Lord. Then the 36th year of his reign came around, where he started to slow down. Baasha, the king of Israel, went up against Judah and fortified Ramah to prevent anyone from leaving or entering the territory. Asa went and got gold and silver from his palace and the temple to try to make a treaty with Ben-Hadad of Syria. During this, Asa didn't even think about seeking the Lord his God, even though he's seen him strike down the Ethiopians and knows what he can do with his army. But instead, he tried to make an alliance with the enemy kingdom. He stopped right before he crossed the finish line. And in 2 Chronicles 16:7-9, it says, "At that time, Hanani the seer came to Asa, king of Judah, and said to him, 'Because you have relied on the king of Aram and not the Lord your God, the army of the king of Aram has escaped from your hand. Were not the Cushites and the Libyans a mighty army with great numbers of chariots and horsemen? Yet when you relied on the Lord, he delivered them into your hand. For the eyes of the Lord range throughout the earth to strengthen those whose hearts are fully committed to him. You have done a foolish thing, and from now on you will be at war.'" Then Asa became really angry. He threw his seer in prison, and that is the worst sin that can be committed in Chronicles. Then he brutally oppressed his people. Even when Asa had a foot disease, he relied on the physicians to heal him and did not even thinking about seeking God. This just shows how you can start off good in your race, but not finish it and quit and give up on God towards the end, like Asa. Asa struggled to persevere through his race, but the writer of Hebrews says something about perseverance in Hebrews 12:1. It says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race has marked out for us." This is telling us to run our race with perseverance. And Paul says in 1 Corinthians 9:24-27, "Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize. Everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we do it to get a crown that will last forever. Therefore, I do not run like someone running aimlessly. I do not fight like a boxer beating the air. No, I strike a blow to my body and make it my slave, so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified for the prize. In this verse, Paul is telling us that we should run a race in a way to get the prize, and when we finish, we shall receive our crown that will last forever. Both of these texts are telling us to persevere and finish our race, and we will receive our reward. But it doesn't matter when we start the race. In Matthew 20, Jesus tells his disciples the parable of the landowner in the vineyard. This parable is about a landowner who hires workers every day, but at different times of the day, but they all get paid the same amount. So the people that were hired early in the morning got mad at the landowner, and he responded to them in Matthew chapter 20, 14 through 16 by saying, "Take your pay and go. I want to give the one who was hired last the same as I gave you. Don't I have the right to do what I want with my money? Or are you envious because I am so generous? So the last will be first, and the first will be last." Jesus is explaining to them that it does not matter when we start the race, because we will all receive the same reward as long as we finish it with God. But Jesus is a great example of someone who finished his race. When he was in the Garden of Gethsemane in chapter 26 of Matthew, verse 38, at the climax of his run, he said, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death." This is not me in 8th grade being dramatic, feeling like I'm about to die in the middle of a race. No, this is real. Real life, real hardship, real sorrow. Even Jesus had to persevere through his race. And on the last night of his life, later in the garden, when he prayed to God, he said, "Let your will be done." And when he was hanging on the cross with nails in his hands and feet, he said, "It is finished." His race was finished. And he received that eternal crown that Paul was talking about in 1 Corinthians 9. But he also gave us a gift, the gift of our sins being forgiven. We need to encourage others to get back on track in their race and to continue it. But we also have to talk about our race. We need to persevere through a race like Hebrews 12 says. And Asa's story shows us that you haven't finished the race until you've crossed the finish line. It does not matter how we start the race, it matters how we finish it. Let's finish the race right.